I think there is at least as compelling argument that early adolescence into mid-adolescence is another really critical period of time for another set of processes, for complex emotions, for developing passions and intense motivations, for setting trajectories for life goals, for forming first relationships. There are a set of processes that early adolescence is probably at least as important of a window as early child development is. And I think for other processes, early school, the period from 4 to 6 may be really important. But the idea that adolescence is a critical time for certain kinds of complex emotional and motivational processes, I think is very well supported. And having that increase in conscious awareness and valuing that period of time, I think is extremely important. I think a second principle that bears some mention relates to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the balance between sleep systems and arousal systems. And that is that developmentally, adolescence is associated with a huge swing towards higher arousal, sensation seeking, even though the need for sleep goes up. And at this period of time, when we think that there may be some aspects of these systems that are being calibrated, I think we should give some thought to how adolescents find some balance in their own lives. And that is that it's not just that they're not getting so much sleep, it's that downtime or time to reflect or time to reset systems to a lower level is just something that rarely occurs for adolescents. If they do have periods like that, they tend to feel bored or that it's a dissonant period of time. And I think that raises some really important questions about the balance in this system. I should probably actually back up because I realized I left out a key part of why this ends up being a policy issue. I think that there are some really important policy issues that relate to this need for a balance in these systems in adolescence. But I guess the second half of that is that we do need more research to really base those recommendations in order to really turn them into policy. There are a few places where this is now beginning to be addressed in policy. One of the specific issues has been school start times, and there's been given the incredible amount of evidence that many high school students are sleep deprived, that are getting by on 6.5 or 7 hours of sleep at a time when they really need 8.5 or 9 hours of sleep, and the evidence that is manifesting as much as anything on emotional regulation, irritability, and mood regulation. There's been a real move to start high schools later, to accommodate this tendency with the biological clock and staying up later. And in a couple places, like in the Minnesota School District, where they've done this in a controlled way, the data are really strongly supporting this has been a positive thing to do. But I don't want to oversimplify this. It's not just that we should change school start times and that's going to solve the problem. I think that this needs to be combined with an education program about the importance of sleep, about the importance of low arousal times, and that just like nutrition has had a tremendous amount of attention in terms of the basic principles. It's not a magic bullet. I mean, it's not like that makes adolescents eat right, but they know it. If you go into junior high schools and you ask them about the food pyramid, they all know it. They all know the principles of nutrition in a way that they didn't, I think, even 20 or 30 years ago. Ask them about sleep. Ask them about how much sleep they need. Ask them about the value of sleep. Ask them about whether there's any value to downtime of having some balancing system, and they look at you like you're crazy. And so I think there's some policy issues even at this early point, before we know more scientifically about these systems, about having youth understand some issues about their sleep needs and how sleep is important for health and how sleep is relevant to emotional arousal.